share with you a story by a really cool author and paranormal enthusiast. His name is John Rippian, and he's created 800 Years of Haunted Liverpool, and he's giving me permission kindly to share some of his documented evidence with you. And I thought specifically a lot of you would like this particular story, as I find it truly amazing. And it is Old Trash, the Phantom Black Hellhound of Formby Sands. The coastal town of Formby occupies roughly 6.5 square miles, and it stands upon a large flat area of land that is called West Lancashire Coastal Plain on the northwest of the Sefton coast. The township is really landlocked, and the surrounding territory being used almost exclusively for agriculture. Formby is home to the Victoria Road Red Squirrel Reserve, as well as a historic Grade 2 listed hall dating back all the way to 1523. Now, having served for many generations as home to the Lord of the Manor, Formby, so it's Fornebei, and the town's name translates from the Scandinavian as village belonging to the Forney. When the Vikings was travelling to England from the outposts of Ireland, they began to establish settlements along the Lancashire coastline. And during the 8th century, a Norse family by the name of Forney is thought to have taken up residence in the area and thus given it its title. Further back, during the 1st century CE, it is believed that the Romans had used the area as a major thoroughfare route for troops during their escapade on conquering England. There is even proof that the people were living and perhaps farming in this area as long ago as 4,000 years. Erosion of Formby Sands has also revealed layers of mud and sediment, and some of which has been preserved since the Stone Age times, and the remains of a submerged ancient forests along with the Sefton coast is where first recorded centuries ago. But it was not until Gordon Roberts began his work on the sands during the 1980s that Formby truly began to reveal some of its secrets it's kept hidden for thousands of years. Cart tracks and human footprints, as well as those of red deer and now extinct gigantic cattle, and lots of wolves and wild large dogs. And it's also been found to set into the ancient sun-hardened mud many fascinating sorts of tools, pottery bits of different things. And in 1999, Mr. Roberts made an astonishing discovery. Here is what it says. One of the group, Miss Finn Mann of Edgehill College, noticed that what appeared to be a small fragment of bone eroding out of the sediment. It proved to be a complete set of large red deer antlers still attached to part of the animal's skull, and they were almost 31.5 inches long from base to tip, with 8 tines on each of the antlers. The antlers were belonging to an adult male who died in his prime during the autumn rooting season. Phantom black dogs have long been a staple of British folklore. There are reports that the mysterious creatures from all over the island, and indeed even further afield. Some of them date back to centuries. Probably the most famous black dog tale is said to have taken place in Suffolk in 1577. It was recorded by Reverend Abraham Fleming, and an account of these events were published in a 16th century pamphlet that was entitled A Strange and Terrible Wonder. Now, on the morning of the 4th of August, which was a Sunday, there was a sudden violent storm that had struck the Suffolk coast. At the same time, a congregation gathered in Bungay Church were astonished to see an immense black dog appear within the building. The beast had attacked and killed 2 men as they were knelt in prayer. It said that their necks had been broken in a matter of seconds. A 3rd man was bitten on the back of him by this creature, and his wound apparently having a curiously puckered appearance, more akin to a burn than a bite, as the mouth of a purse or bag drawn together with string. Shortly after, on the very same day, there was another monstrous black canine that was reported to have appeared at the nearby parish church of Billybury, which is now Blythburgh, and it slayed a further 2 men and also a young boy. Yet another parishioner was scorched by the touch of the dog, and the beast is said to have left a blazing paw print on the door. A blazing paw print from the dog is said to have left a print on the door of the building. In today's times, though, Blythburgh Church is a popular tourist destination. Its aged door still in view with scorch marks that are clearly visible upon its surface. Black dogs have a multitude of different regional names. Now in Norfolk, they are known as Shuck, or sometimes they call them Old Shuck or Black Shuck. Perhaps this is from the Old English word Skooker, which meaning is the devil. Or maybe it's in honour of a Norse god, Thor's own dog, Shucker. In Suffolk, the beasts are called Gallitrute, Scarfy and Modley Doe, which literally translates to black dog. And there are other names that they are also used. Now, in Lancashire and in Merseyside, they are sometimes called Skirika. And if I'm honest, I'm from Merseyside and I've never heard that term, but this is going back a long time ago. It is said that these gave a really high-pitched screech or a whine. So that is where they got their name from. Now, in Formby, the entry from 1984, This Haunted Isle, a former Ghost Club president, Peter Underwood, is very well known, states that the ghastly resident of Formby Beach is an immense black hound that has luminous eyes, and the sight of which is said to bring death and misfortune to the beholder, especially if it gets hold of him. He goes on to give an account dating back from the early 1960s, when reporters from a local newspaper had paid a visit to the infamous Sand Hills one, All Hallows Eve, in search of this legendary beast. They told of a huge, dark shape moving about in a clear silhouette atop of the nearby sand dunes, which began to circle in a manner of a dog as they approached. When they reached the summit of the hill, however, they found it deserted and entirely lacking in tracks of any kind whatsoever. So they summoned up the report, and one journalist documented that we sincerely convinced that we saw and heard was not of this world. And it says that the author of 800 Years of Liverpool was lucky enough to receive a first-hand account of a meeting with Old Trash by a Mr. Steve Howe. Steve was a former resident of Liverpool, and he moved to Chester. He ran a successful photography business and had a sideline in handmade leather goods. He also has a passion for the history and folklore of his adopted city. And he contacted the author of this 800 Years of Haunted Liverpool and gave a detailed account of what he came across. This is quoted from his letter. 30 odd years ago, myself and motley chums would often spend weekends camping in a secluded wooded area in the no man's land between the nature reserve and the golf course. Approached via Freshfield railway station and not far from the fisherman's path. Outside the shelter of the trees was an extensive sandy, scrubby area with a steep climb at the end, which one had to climb up in order to make their way to the beach, which is a quarter of a mile away. One of these trips was a summer's night, and it was lit by a brilliant moonlight. I decided to do just that, alone, the aim being to have a bit of a dip in the sea. I started to climb up the slope when I heard what sounded for all of the world like a steam train, of all things, approaching rapidly from the far side of the dune. Now I froze in my tracks. The sound was getting louder and louder, and I could feel it vibrating through the floor. Almost immediately, an enormous black dog appeared on the summit, 10 feet or thereabouts above me. It moved at a hell of a lick, and I mean it was enormous. It may have been the moon that was playing tricks, but it looked as if it had red glowing eyes. Without a pause, it bounded past me down the slope without paying me any attention at all, which I'm glad to say. Upon turning around to see where the monster had got to, there was nothing to be seen, and even the brute's train-like panting could no longer be heard. I returned to camp with all the speed I could manage, and I recounted my experience to the others, most of whom naturally were greatly amused by this outlandish yarn. One, however, a lad from Formby, then recounted the local legend of the black dog, and said lots of local folk had claimed to have seen it in the past. Now that seemed to shut the other members up. Now, he said he was asked to describe the dog in greater detail, and he said that although he'd only seen the creature for a second or two, his impression was of a sleek, short-coated animal, roughly the size of a very large Saint Bernard. The Saint Bernard, if you don't know, is like Beethoven the dog. It's a bloody big dog. And it had a muscular build, more like a Rottweiler. And as for the story told to him by his friend from Formby, Mr. Howe's only recollection was that he merely said that it was well known in the area and that some of the locals claimed to have also seen it. So he contacted a Patrick Trollope of Southport and Mersey reporter to find out if he knew anything of these legends that surrounded the black dogs of the area. Now, Patrick informed the author of the book that old trash is said to have been sighted upon Sefton's sands as far north of Formby and Southport, though he stated that that he puts little stock into such rumours. He also mentioned that he had heard tales of the black dog being associated with a coastal church which was lost a long ago. Now, regrettably, I have thus been able to uncover any evidence of any such connection or indeed any occurrence. Stories of black dogs are frequently connected with water. Many sightings are reported near streams, rivers, lakes or springs, and this correlation has led to many researchers to speculate as to why that might be. And Ethel Rudkin, who collected many stories of these black dog ghosts in a book called Lancashire Folklore, she thought that the black dog has to do with an invasion by the water up the rivers, then up to the streams to the spring line, while in 1976, notable 14 comic writer, occultist and Orientalist, a guy named Steve Moore, put forth a theory that it could be the result of a Viking invasion, and it is just a replay of the events that led to the invasion. We don't know. Now, the invading Norsemen would likely have been referred to by the Anglo-Saxons as wolves or dogs, words such as hound and wolf having dual meanings and often being used as terms of abuse. Indeed, it does seem curious that the sightings should so often occur in spots where such things were once occupied or else attacked by the Vikings. Black dogs also apparently being found on Christian churches, which would once have been especially targeted by the Vikings. Unfortunately, the origins and the motives of Formby's black dog mystery remain as elusive as ever. Perhaps, like many black dogs, the creature has more in common with the so-called alien big cats, which is like the beast of Bodmin Moor and the puma of Surrey, which are equally and regularly sighted across the UK and further afield. Creatures of variable substance, seemingly neither are real or entirely intangible. So it's hard to say whether these are real, they are ghosts, or they are things like the Banshee harboring bad news. So what do you make of these black dogs that have been sighted throughout the UK and possibly the world? A bit of a strange one. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings today. If so, like, share, subscribe, and see you all in the next video. Peace.